The long-awaited Snow White has officially arrived. The apple obviously was poisoned over 2 years ago at this point, but the fatal results are just now sinking in.
Oh boy.
1% evil, 99% hot gas.
Snow White box office more sleepy than happy. Snow White is a box office dwarf. Snow White opens with a sleepy 43 million at the box office.
Yeah.
Weird. Now, knowing the impending struggle, the film was already only projected to hit around 85 million in the opening weekend. But it didn't even break 50 million. I even tried to help her with my whopping $15 matinee tickets, but it just didn't make a dent. Now, for comparison, the live-action Ariel made 95.5 million in the opening weekend, so it's not just the curse of a remake. Even the race swap on that one didn't totally destroy the success. But with Snow White, it is a different kind of failure, a different level of low.
What? I love garbage.
Now, the original 1937 animated Snow White was the highest-grossing animated film for 55 years running at one point, with Walt Disney himself literally being the producer of that film. Its success sent Disney into a whole other stratosphere, but his magic touch is sadly long gone from Disney now. All you need to do is watch the new live-action remake to know that. Walking into a Disney film on opening weekend and only sharing a massive theater with my AP Diana and a few old ladies on the other side of row G was all that I needed to know about the film's success, or lack thereof success. Now, we'll unpack my thoughts in a bit, but first, I just want to give you the data and some spoilers too, so just be alert if you don't want to hear those. Ollie London over on X pointed out that 76.5% of the 25,000 reviews on IMDb gave the film just 1 out of 10.
Yeah, off to a bad start, unfortunately.
It has a 2.1 out of 10 on IMDb, which I think actually is one of the new record lows for a Disney film ever. That was also news this morning. It's just breaking all of the records in the worst ways. And this I thought was funny too, so I went on IMDb to see this for myself. I filtered it through the different countries, thinking like maybe it was just cursed in the US because of what has gone down. No! It's all of them. I even clicked India. India is the exact same. So the hatred or the disdain or frankly, the just objectively bad movie has gone global and everyone agrees. So that's rough for them. And here are some of those reviews under those ratings. Would not recommend anyone go and watch it, lacked substance, and changed the storyline to the worst parts of modern feminism. An ideological attack on a great story that had stood the test of time until now. Just a bad movie. Daughter didn't like it either. She said, sorry for insisting on seeing it. I forgave her. Not Disney. That would be me as a young child. Like, I knew there was some drama around it, still want to go see it. And then I'm in the theater and I'm like, sorry, Dad, you were right. This is a bad movie. Like, this sucks. Now, over on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic consensus said Snow White is hardly a grumpy time at the movies thanks to Rachel Zegler's luminous star turn. But its bashful treatment of the source material, along with some dopey stylistic choices, won't make everyone happy either. It didn't make anyone happy in any country around the world. And while after reading way too many of these very angry reviews, I about wanted to take a bite of my own poison apple. What I should be taking is the gem bite, because if you didn't know, 90% of Americans are nutrient deficient. And while the supplement aisle may seem like the answer, most of those options are just full of synthetic ingredients that again are probably just more poison. So that is why I love what Gem is doing. Gem is on a mission to make food as medicine a reality through bite-sized nutrition solutions that are simple and delightful to digest, unlike this movie. Now, the Gem Bite is a functional multivitamin formulated for proper absorption with over 20 nutrients, prebiotics, and probiotics, all in one delicious real food bite for foundational health. Their bites are designed with your nutritional needs in mind, using real food ingredients your body naturally absorbs more effectively. Their key ingredient is beta-glucan, a soluble fiber that can help boost your GLP-1 levels. Plus, Gem is committed to quality, sourcing organic ingredients whenever possible, and they never use anything artificial. All their bites are vegan, gluten-free, and soy-free. And it's not just feel-good marketing, they are backed by science. They formulate with nourishing ingredients that are individually backed by clinical and scientific studies to ensure that your body gets exactly what it needs every single day while still tasting delicious. So if you want to give the first real food multivitamin a try, you can head to dailygem.com/Conrad or enter code Conrad at checkout for 30% off your first order. That's dailygem.com/Conrad or enter code Conrad at checkout for 30% off. Now, while some reviews for the movie were negative, other reviewers loved the movie. I'm assuming these are probably just the Disney adults that love everything Disney does. But regardless, someone said, in its own way, this one's just as groundbreaking. The rare Disney princess movie where the princess gets to graduate to queen.
Okay.
As far as live action remakes go, have courage, be kind, and fight fascism is a fitting message for the moment, even if it comes wrapped in a pretty garish package. This is why so much about this movie is infuriating. You couldn't disconnect the intended political messages from the film. Large in part because of Rachel, that at every moment she's singing about fairness and equality, and those are good things. But I'm watching Rachel say them, and I know the other things she has said.
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about...
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated.
I could see her embodying her anger at the queen when really it was supposed to be at Trump. I couldn't disconnect the two. I could have if she didn't shoot her mouth off the whole time, but I couldn't in this film. This is not a scenario in which the conservatives didn't like the movie and the liberals love it. Like, again, globally, no one seemed to love it, but neither did like our media, like mainstream media. Lazy, visually repellent, The Independent. Exhaustingly awful, The Guardian. Disney has trashed its reputation, The Times. A strange hot mess, The Huffington Post. Listless, Screen Daily. Good enough for TV, Vanity Fair. Film has a major identity crisis, BBC. No one was happy. Michael Knowles aptly called it Sand Beige, which I just felt was a fitting rebrand name for this film.
Snow White needs to be white. I've been referring to this new movie as Sand Beige. She is a vaguely brown lady.
But all weekend, I saw so many different writers trying to figure out what exactly was to blame for the impending colossal failure come the end of the weekend. Obviously, as I pointed out earlier, which is exactly what happened with only getting like $45 million. But the New York Times specifically wrote about this, and they said, Snow White and the 7 cajillion controversies. The dwarves, the casting, the politics of the lead actress, and the wig, which they later in the article called it, looked like Lord Farquaad, which I thought was really funny.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Is Disney's live-action remake of the classic film doomed by culture war skirmishes? It's not the culture war. It's Disney being dumb. Disney's inability to simply bring to life the most beloved animated movie of all time is to blame. As for the film itself, there was no emotional depth, no innocence. I mean, I wanted to love it. I'm a girl who has and will always love a good princess movie. I mean, I grew up on them. I loved them growing up. I didn't want to have to hate this. I don't think Diana can attest to this. I went in with like a hopeful attitude. Like we wanted to find the good in it. We did, but we also found so much bad. Honestly, the internet found so much bad. They unpacked even more things that I realized were bad. Like on the surface, I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh, wait. But what could have been spectacular was mid at best. And perhaps if I wasn't following along with this saga for years at this point, I would have waited for it to go to streaming, watched it, and then smiled and said, good movie. But even though I tried to channel my inner naivete on the whole situation, even my hopeful optimism could not carry me through unburdened by what was. The only emotion I actually felt, Diana, I'm curious to see if you felt this too, but in the first 5 minutes when the parents were still alive with Snow White and they were singing with her, and then the dad and the daughter had this little moment, that's the part that like stirred emotion in me. And I'm sitting there like 5 minutes in feeling, oh, what is wrong? That went away real quick and never came back. No emotional scenes with adults. Snow White.
In the first like 10 minutes of the movie, I was processing how they just changed the entire storyline and the Snow White thing. So that's where my brain was at for the first.
I tried to like segment all of these moments. Like I had to just be in the moment of every scene and not like be paying attention to how offended I was by the scene prior. I also rarely pay attention to costumes on first watch of something this extravagant unless they are bad enough that my brain gets sucked out of the movie and starts just nitpicking the outfits, which it did on multiple occasions. Especially the way that her like dress was connected to her shoulder and it was this weird like, but it looked like something they just made in the costume department like a day before. It didn't have any age or like grit to it. Like School Musical costume, DIY'd by the art teacher. Like that's how it felt on a multi-million, $100 million project. Gal Gadot also was not good at all. It looks like she was given the script like 5 minutes beforehand and they just said, all right, act like an evil queen. So she put on like these fake nails and like did some heavy, glam. She was just Gal with fake nails and heavy makeup and a cringe evil queen costume. That's the fun job to be cast in, where you just get to act like this extravagant, crazy person. She didn't do anything with it. Any compliments for her in this movie that I saw on social media, I was like, you're lying. That's not true. It was not good. Angelina Jolie, who played Maleficent in the Sleeping Beauty movie a couple years ago, she actually was able to become a different character and like play into it so well. Gal didn't. Sorry, that's just a side tangent, but that was just wildly disappointing. And of course, the biggest error of all was hiring Rachel Zegler. And not because she's not pale-skinned Snow White, but for like so many other reasons. Similar to Halle Bailey in The Little Mermaid, I got past the race swap and watched the movie, and it was a beautiful movie. Was I very annoyed by that because The Little Mermaid is my favorite princess ever? Yes, but whatever. But for Rachel, she was just annoying on so many other fronts, so it was hard to disconnect the character from the actress. And interestingly for the movie, because again, she is not fair-skinned, Snow White is. That's why she's named Snow White. There's a line in the book about it being the super dark hair with the super fair skin, and that's why she's named Snow White. So to begin with, when this movie started, they introduced Snow White's name by the fact that she was born during a snowstorm, and so that is why her parents named her Snow White.
That ain't right. Shame on you.
So very quickly, I think Diane and I both were like, all right, they had to figure out a way to do that, and they found a way. But it was just so, okay. I tried not to let that moment in the very beginning distract me from the rest of the movie because the immediate eye roll was like, okay. I would have loved to have been in the Disney, like, meeting room. Like, okay, guys, so we cast a Latina actress. We can no longer just say that Snow White is pale-skinned. So we have to come up with, like, another idea. So, like, let's spitball ideas.
Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
It had to be its own like conversation, which I would have loved to watch them try to like tiptoe around that without like saying something controversial, but also like addressing the fact that she's not inherently like pale white. So they came up with a snowstorm. Okay. Very Frozen of them. Can she and did she sing beautifully in this movie? Yes, of course. She's a Broadway singer. I'm not surprised. She has an objectively amazing voice. Yes, 100%. It's funny though, because they removed the best song from the original movie, the one called Someday My Prince Will Come, which if you forgot what that sounds like, let me just play it for you because this is so iconic that I cannot believe that they dropped it.
Someday my prince will come.
I mean, this is classic Disney. That is like core childhood. I haven't heard that song in probably freaking 20 years. And I heard that was like, oh, Snow White. That is Snow White. And they replaced songs like that one with fully forgettable songs. I even wanted to try to remember some of them to share with you all. And I literally could not remember a single one of the new songs. At least a lot of these bad movies can be saved by objectively good songs, but not this one. I'll never listen to that soundtrack ever again. And not only did they remove the song about a prince, they removed the prince fully. It reminded me about the comments that ruined this movie in the first place, which for a quick refresher, we're just gonna play them again because now they matter more than ever. I can't stress this enough. Just listen to what these women say. It's sad watching this, like before I get started here, that what she's about to do is about to ruin her movie. Like, these words are about to completely obliterate any chance of success this movie had. It's wild, frankly.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
Yes, Rachel, please tell us what you meant.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. Editors, how many times have we used that meme in the last 3 years?
The limit does not exist.
All the time. In the best way.
So no prince or a different kind of prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie. Right. Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yeah.
Again, spoilers are coming. It was a love story. That was a huge part of this film. So even that comment, I'll let her continue though.
One of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024.
2025, because you ruined it here.
All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Okay, that line. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut because it's Hollywood, baby. Anything can happen. When I watched that, I thought, okay, he must have such a minor role. They must have just completely ruined the character of a prince or a male figure in this film to the point that she said, oh, we could just cut him out. Like he's so irrelevant to the film. So that's the idea that I went into this film thinking that he's just going to be so nothing. Okay? So remember that line. Let me play the other clip of this whole viral moment so we get the full impact before I tear it all down.
What a terrible thing to say about that guy, too. She's like, nice guy, but also he's so irrelevant. We could just cut all of his
imagine.
lines.
Oh, everything about it was bad. It wasn't like one line she said. She said multiple things that were bad.
What was it like seeing yourself as the evil queen for the first time?
We did not see the clip, so I still haven't seen anything.
But when you were in makeup.
But when I was in makeup, just like she said, we got to work with such an amazing crew, and it was just like the best it could ever be.
It's just like the evil queen talking. She just reminds me of the character that she played because they're exactly the same person. No variation.
I must say that for me, also the transition for the old hag was incredible because it was all real prosthetic.
Probably because that's the only time she actually felt like she was acting. Was when she was dressed like an old hag. I don't mean to roast Scout, but it was not good.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
She didn't write the Snow White. I love how she speaks like, if I was the writers of this film, I'd be like, shut up. You didn't write any of this. You're just the actress.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
But here's the thing. She was saved by a man. 2 times. The prince saved her life. 2 different occasions in this film. Except he's not a prince. He was a criminal, actually like a bandit. In fact, those leaked photos of what we all thought were the reimagined dwarves a couple years ago were actually the 7 bandits. So there were 7 dwarves that were CGI, cute little dwarves. And then there were these individuals who were the 7 bandits. Which Disney should have just told us that when we all thought it was the dwarves and like freaked out over it. They should have just been like, no, there was not. They didn't. Every step along the way, Disney failed. But this new reimagined prince was the leader of those people. But he saved her life pretty early on, first of all. So if he hadn't have saved her then, the rest of the movie couldn't have happened because Snow White would have been shot with an arrow and dead. He took an arrow for her, okay? I'm playing this back and remembering how she said they could cut this man out of the movie. The man, early on, took an arrow for Snow White, okay? Saved her life. And then they fell in love. They kissed. They have a whole song about them falling in love. And then he is the one who comes and kisses her to wake her from her slumber. So 2 times, Snow White would be KO'd. She would never have come back, but for a man. So I cannot believe they said what they said about, she's not going to be saved by, she was saved by a prince. I'm sorry. This just like made me, I was shocked when I saw this in the theaters. Him saving her life. Why would they say she's not going to be saved by a prince? I thought maybe that they like had to do reshoots after this to make sure that there was a love story component because of what she said. And they wanted to like save their face a little bit. But it's clear that this was an intrinsic part of the storyline. There was no other way to not have a man be a very important part of this story. But for her to be like, yeah, we can cut out his scenes. No, if we cut out those scenes, girl, you would be dead. You would be dead and you would not come back. So your character would be no more. Like, I cannot believe they said that 2 different times. Saved by friends. Oh gosh. I mean, those comments from Gal and Rachel ruined the film. And they were not even accurate. Snow White would have never awakened from her poison-induced slumber without a man. Maybe that would have been for the best at this point. More recently, Rachel has tried to save face or paint a new face regarding her thoughts about the OG Snow White princess from back in the day. And she posted these photos. It's kind of a recreation of the original actress's Snow White photos that they had for the original movie. And so she took these photos and like tried to lean into the old Hollywood whatever, the innocence. It doesn't play. The hair is great. The hair should have been how actual Snow White hair was rather than the Lord Farquaad hair. That would have been great. Like now they suddenly cared about the aesthetic to like make her so cute and whatever. And the movie like, I don't care, this wig. But that did not go over well. It was a little too late. But But just imagine if Rachel would have pulled a Gabriel Basso, which we talked about in a recent episode. Imagine if she just believed that her job and skill set was singing and acting, rather than, at her first real global big break, deciding to word vomit all of her personal politics onto a global stage. I mean, if she just would have kept quiet, done her craft, done it well, people would have respected it and they would have loved it. I think many of us still wouldn't have loved the deviations from the original storyline, or the costumes, or Gal's acting. I can't drop that. But I could have properly escaped into the film and fell into that magical trance that any good princess film can pull you into. But instead, I saw Rachel singing about the evil queen, yes, but knowing full well that her smirks and calls for fairness were just saturated in her abundant public hatred for Trump and all the people that she deems unfair. It's pretty hard to escape and enjoy the beauty and innocence of a young woman who simultaneously promotes this kind of behavior on social media. Ah yes, the princess that I know and love. I love the picture on the left because it says respect women today and every day, and it's just flipping us all off. What is Snow White's characteristics? Brave, fair, true, kind, graceful. She's exhibiting none of the things. That's the irony here. Our dear, kind, fair, and true Snow White also wished the majority of our country to live in a world in which they never know peace. So to Rachel, perhaps learn something from the graceful character that you played and try embodying literally any of those qualities that made Snow White an icon and role model for women for decades and decades. Nearly a century later, it should be clear to all women that there is a timeless power in those qualities. As for Disney, don't fix what isn't broken. I would highly suggest that they do a 2025 theatrical release of the 1937 Snow White, and I'd bet you'd make all of your money back. And maybe that will teach you all a lesson. Thanks so much for watching today's episode. If you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video if you enjoyed it. And last but not least, if you want more content, you can follow me on X and Instagram. Thanks so much and have a great day.